Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an A-Pro member, then the answer is probably no. Look, advocacy is A-Pro's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. A-Pro membership is about way more than advocacy. A-Pro connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. A-Pro's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. A-Pro's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. A-Pro is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With A-Pro, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the A-Pro family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with A-Pro.
And welcome to the RTO Show with Danny and Pete. I'm your host, Danny.
And I'm your host, Pete. And today we're talking about managing from your sweet spot. And that sweet spot could be all over the place, Danny. What's the sweet spot? What are we talking about?
You know, we talk about this all the time, even in our past experience when we manage stores. I question myself. I wonder, would I be able to manage a 500 customer count or 600 customer count, 7, 8, whatever? I ran a mid-level store. I mean, I took it from a small level to a mid-level, from less than 300 customers to over 400 customers. And after I got past that 400 customers, I remember, wow, like I can't do the same things I've done in the past managing the same way anymore because it's not going to work. There's just not enough time. I'm dealing with more volume. And I think that is something we need to ask ourselves and ask our employees and managers specifically. What is your sweet spot? What is the level you can comfortably run and produce the right results?
Now, when you talk about sweet spot, are you talking about customers only, or are you talking about rental revenues? I mean, which one is more important, the rental revenue spot or the how many customers you have?
Well, in my opinion, it's customers. And the reason why I say that is because you can have a high customer count but a low APC, or you can have a low customer count with a high APC. So the rental revs, you can have two different stores. You can have a store with 300 customers with rental revs of, let's say, 80,000.
Wow! If you have that, we gotta watch those numbers.
Well, yeah, I'm just throwing out figures to you though. Or you can have a 400 customer count store also at 80,000 revs. Both managers are going to be managing differently. They have the same amount of revenues, but since the customers are greatly different, I think the one with the 400 customers is going to have a harder time. Like they won't be able to manage the same way because you have more customers. That's more calls, more chasing, more managing. Just because, Pete, you might have 10 agreements and I only have one. I say this all the time with account manager. You're not chasing agreements or items. You're chasing customers. You're managing customers.
Well, when we talk about customers in the APC, the average per customer or the average monthly revenues per customer, I agree that there's definitely a sweet spot between one level and the other. My sweet spot actually was between probably like 400 and 450 before I really had to start changing how I manage my style, whether I was involved in directly, whether I was indirectly involved, more of the management style. I think that kind of transition between the mid threes to the fours, then it transitioned. I was managing differently between the 4 to 450 ranges when it started kind of like coming out of that zone where I was really involved to the point where I was on the back of the truck, or I was taking care of certain things myself, or whether it be services or, really in depth in the day to day versus having to take a step back and actually play that managerial role where you're kind of like looking at it and having to really get it done through others because there's so much going on. Like you said, the amount of customers dictates what you're doing in your day. So it increases the amount of services you have, increases the amount of deliveries you have, increases the amount of pickups you have, and then it changes your dynamic for the day because you can either get it done or you can't. And you really have to learn at some point, you've got to get it done through the people that you have. So then I know that in rent to own, there's a 5-man crew, right? Depending on how you run it, it could be anything. It could be 2 deliveries, it could be 2 accounts, could be one GM, it could be one assistant, one sales, and one of them is on credit, either assistant or the other person, and then 2 deliveries, or you could have 2 account managers. How would you staff a store that's at between 4 and 450? When you start hitting that my range, I wouldn't say anybody's range, but my range, how would you staff a store to get that correctly?
Well, there's a couple other variables besides the customers now. Okay, so if we're talking about just customer base, 400 to 450, it's funny. It depends on the people you have too, because you can have a dynamic account manager, an elite account manager that might be able to manage 400, 450 customers. So you only need one account manager. Or if you have 2 above average account managers, then you might need 2. So without getting too nitty gritty, I guess if I had a store that was over 400 customers, I personally would be me, 1 salesperson, 2 account managers, 2 drivers. That's a 6-person staff. That to me is the perfect amount for me to delegate and manage. And could you run on a 5-person staff? Absolutely. But I also believe that would cause me to be stepping in a lot of, it would be a lot of rotating. Account managers would be rotating on 2-man deliveries, meaning me or my assistant would have to step into that role of account manager for that hour or 2, which means then somebody else is moving into that sales. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So it all depends. In a perfect world, I would have 1 dynamic account manager, 1 sales assistant, and 2 drivers. And if I got the top-notch players, that's how I would run the store. But that's like asking for the dream team basketball team, you know what I'm saying? So like it's, you got to find those good quality people. It's also taking into consideration of payroll. What's my payroll at compared to the rental revs we're bringing in for the month? Can I even afford a 6-person or not? So I don't know. That's a double-edged question that you asked me. I don't know. I mean, in a perfect world, I would say 6. If you're over 400 customers, under 400 is definitely a 5-person staff.
Well, you know that I ask those questions on purpose, right?
I know you do.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of variables that play in that how I'm going to staff it, because sometimes, like, more of your stores are a little bit more rural than mine, and they have a lot more ground to cover.
Yep.
And that ground can be based on distance because of how far it is, and it still only be 15 minutes to ride 10 miles because it's a highway. It could be in the city, and the city traffic's a lot different. So, I think the amount of people runs on revenues first and foremost, right? Can you afford it? Can you efficiently afford it? And then I think it runs on, like you said, tenureship and how good those people are, how long they've been in that position. And then it's going to come down to, after you take a look at those things, how you manage those people. Because I think in the entire essence of the situation is, as you're playing the chess, as we call it, we play the chess with our people and trying to find the right positions for them to be in, and the correct way for us to utilize their talents. One manager might understand how to do it better with less, and one might understand how to do better with more. I was always a little bit more intrigued in doing a little bit better for less, because I was always interested in the value of making sure that the guys that I had there were 100% trained up and tuned in. You try to make sure that you take care of them. But I have noticed that can also be Achilles' heel when you think that you can kind of handle it all. And that's why we're talking about the sweet spot today, is because you have to look at it and know, okay, this is a little bit outside my comfort zone now. I'm starting to get to a point where I'm not handling it as great as I could because I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And not overwhelmed in a bad way, but overwhelmed in the sense that there's more business here than I'm able to make happen. And so you have to find out where that spot is for you. And I think mine was about 4 to 450. And in that transition area, I could tell it was taking me a little bit longer to get to some people in the area that I'm in, or the call throughs were just taking a little bit more time out of the delivery schedule, and making the right decisions on everybody to make sure that, your services come first, then your deliveries, then your returns. It makes it a little bit harder when you start running on short staff, man. You start knocking on that 40 pretty quick, because at the time, even I have to say, at the time I was running like 45 hours. I mean, that was the industry standard. And now that we're at 40, it creates a whole nother management dynamic. And did you ever manage at a 40-hour week? I actually didn't. I've actually never managed at a 40-hour week. I always managed with overtime.
Yeah. So when I ran a store, it was definitely, employees were on a 45, 47-hour work week. I was on a 55 hour work week. And one thing I personally learned is, growing with your store. So when we're talking about your sweet spot, I think it's a different dynamic when if you take over a store that's already at a 400 count, you kind of go in there and start managing at that 400 count. But when you take over a small store like I did, where I was under 300 customers. So when I took over the Bush store, it was under 300 customers. It was me and 3 other people. That's it. I ran a 4-person staff. It was me, 1 account manager, 1 driver, 1 salesperson. That was it. And we ran it like that for almost a solid year. I did not take on a 5th person until I hit 350 customers. And at that point, that's because, again, it was becoming time consuming for the account manager to get through the full call through and then help with the deliveries and vice versa with myself. I developed a routine schedule that worked smoothly for me. But by the time I hit 350, I was like, okay, coming in Saturday, 8 o'clock, I can't get the call throughs done by 9:30 anymore. Now it's taking me to 10:30 because why? I have more customers. So when I hit 350, I'm like, all right, I need a 5th person. But that 5th person, what is it? Is it another driver or is it another account manager? I went with the direction of another account manager where the account manager can then switch off and help me with the 2-man deliveries. And then I can jump in here and there as whatever. I ran that 5-person staff until I got past 400, maybe 425. Then I brought on a 2nd driver. So when you talk about your sweet spot, you also have to be evaluating yourself as you're growing with your store. If you're taking it from a small store to a mid-level store and you grow your store, you have to grow with it and your management, with your staffing, and make sure you're going to set yourself up for success. You're going to have to change your style up. The bigger the store, the less involved you have to be. That's my opinion. We have a couple guys that they're running.
Well, directly involved.
Correct. Directly involved. Like, you're not going to have the time to sit there and do full call throughs like a manager with 300 customers can do. You have over 500 customers. Are you calling all your 30 pluses, 16 pluses every day? Yes, of course. But you're not going to be calling your 1-dayers all the way. You're not doing a full call through, whereas a manager who only has 300 customers has the time to do. So I guess that's the big difference. So when we're talking about this, what is managing your sweet spot? That's another evaluation process we have to ask ourselves when we're evaluating our managers is what is their sweet spot? Do they know what their sweet spot is? Can they be honest enough to say, hey, listen, I'm a 400 customer guy. I'll collect the revenues at 80,000. I'll give you a good 10 to 15% net profit at the end of the year, but I just can't manage 500 customers and above. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the honest conversation we need to have so we know where's the best place to put them. Because maybe we have a manager that's running a location that we know undoubtedly has a potential to be 600-700 customers. But this manager is kind of capped right now in the mid 400s because they just are, I don't want to use the word incapable, but they don't have the necessary skills or strengths to take it to the next level and manage it correctly. So, when we did our retain or replace episode, I think that was one of the things that we missed out on that topic or that subject was, well, maybe it's not a matter of retaining or replacing. Maybe it's a matter of transferring to a location to manage at that level that it will best suit them and suit the company.
I thought we did cover that, but I want to say that the sweet spot, of course, is something that you can learn to look at, right? You look at your business, you look at your day-to-day, and you can say, okay, I'm better at this, or I'm not better at that, or I'm getting time crunched when I wasn't time crunched. But I think the part of learning your sweet spot is to essentially get better at that sweet spot and grow your sweet spot, right? Because, essentially you would like to think that even below at a lower customer count, you would handle it well. And then getting to your sweet spot would be exactly where your top peak, where your peak performance is with the amount of customers or the amount of revenues you have. And then getting out of that sweet spot makes it uncomfortable, and then you have to start changing up your style. But I think the sweet spot also kind of gives GMs that I've learned where I am capable. I've learned where my limitations are, and then getting the skill set developed to get better. And I think sometimes we forget that. I know there are a lot of guys out there, and I'm not calling out any names because some of them do it very well and some of them don't. But you can get in there and you can grow a store and you get to your sweet spot very quickly. So within a year, within 6 months, you happen to get there. You're like right on the road. You are going like you need to. If you continually go with the growth that you have that fast, it's very possible to go right into it and get right out of your sweet spot without learning that position well. And I think that that's a point where, sometimes we're always thinking, I need to get in there and I need to be gun hole and I've got to make this the biggest, best. And I remember doing that, a couple of times. I try to grow it as fast as I can. And then I'd notice as we're coming out of the 425, probably the, 450 range, it was like, wow, I've really got to take a good look at it. And it's almost like slamming on the brakes, and you kind of don't want to lose your momentum. So you kind of go with it, and then you start making smaller mistakes. And I think learning where your sweet spot is gives you the opportunity to get better at it when you start coming into that, have that steady growth. Now, of course, you come into the fourth quarter, Black Friday, Christmas time, like you really want to put it on. But you don't want to put it on to the point where you don't know how to manage it, because the worst thing you can do is give bad customer service or not give the attention to the customer that they need. And one thing I remember when we were coming back and we did the No Cap episode and we had talked to Dan Fisher was kind of like, how do you manage a store that's that big? When you have revenues of $2 million, and I'm sure that's including, I would like to say, the $2 or the $3 million, that includes your fees and everything like that, your rental revs. How do you manage that? And one of the topics that he said was, you have to have the super capable, almost store-ready assistant. You have to have a staffing built up from that. And I really had to learn from that, because that's not the way I used to do it. And it was out of my comfort zone. It was out of my sweet spot. But to create that sweet spot, now that I have a store that's, it's over 115 rental revs per month, it's like I understand it now. And we've slowly had to come into that, because going into that, if we would have gone into it too fast, I think we would have toppled over. And so learning that from Dan actually helped me help them manage it better. And we're kind of looking to make some changes in 2023 that will still accentuate that slow, steady growth without hindering it. But you have to learn how to grow out of your sweet spot as well.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Chow here from the RTO Show podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space. Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing. And let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too.
Absolutely. And, again, it comes back to time management and prioritizing tasks that need to be completed, because the name of the game is what? Rent and collect. Granted, so you have a manager, mid-level, upper level, lower level, doesn't matter. But let's say they're renting and collecting. They're doing a great job on paper. They're giving you your revenues. They're collecting efficiently. Their credit is on point with standards. They're growing. They're ideal, par, SMR, whatever you call it. But let's say they're lacking on all the managerial duties that are required of them, like completing weekly inventories, clearance out their high 90-day idles, services and loaners, marketing, digital marketing specifically, because if you're growing, you have to do some kind of marketing. Or maybe they're doing the digital marketing, but they're not doing the guerrilla grassroots marketing. So we reach a level as a DM, well, hey, they're growing, they're renting and collecting, they're doing a great job, and they're giving us a profit. But now we got to look at the fine-tuned stuff. Well, they're not getting these tasks completed. So at what point do we say, yeah, you're performing, but you're not completing these tasks, and these tasks are important to our business? So that's where I'm going to ask you, at what point do you say, yeah, hey, you're doing a good job of performing, but you're not completing these tasks, and it's causing inventory issues, it's causing employee issues, it's causing customer issues. So at what point do you make that call?
I want to tackle it from an outside point of view looking in, right? You have a GM who's because at this point in time, we have to say they're on their game, right? They're doing everything that they can. They're trying their hardest to be valuable, to be courteous to the customers, and also be efficient with their job. But then here's the thing. If they're out of their sweet spot, then they really have no idea how to manage that. They don't know how to If it is your sweet spot, you've been there, you've done it, and you're comfortable. Coming out of that sweet spot as far as growth is concerned means that you're not good at it. Not necessarily bad at it, but you're not good at it. And you haven't grown into that position yet. And I would say that for an assistant. I would say that for a GM. I would say that for a DM. That sometimes when you add that growth, they're not ready for it yet. And you have to give them a time to walk into that position to get better at it. For instance, getting a store or adding a store to a DM or adding more customers to a GM means you have to give them sufficient time to go through the cycles to learn how to be better at it, right? And if they're not getting those tasks done, if they're not getting those jobs done, I think the first part of my evaluation is going to be, is that person capable but enabled due to knowledge, or is that person just incapable? And I think that also comes a lot with attitude. Is that person willing to understand and learn and grow with that position? Or are they just, this is the way I'm going to do it and this is how it's going to get done? And I think that if you reach that person, right, and they have the attitude like, I want to learn, I want to get better, I just don't know how to do it, then the first thing that we can do is kind of sit down or be with them and start showing them how to manage their time differently, how to manage their people differently, how to manage their fleet and deliveries differently, how to manage their reports differently. I think it's more of a training issue. Now, of course, being outside looking in as a DM looking in on our people, yeah, it means that you probably have to sit down and kind of go over their day to day, almost really kind of, sit side by side with them and show them exactly how it's done. Just like a DM, when you add a store to a DM too, sometimes you have to really if you don't understand how things are being done with another location and still trying to get things done in the right time frame, maybe it requires that sit down or that meeting or that talking to it. This is how I would approach my day to day. This is how I would fit in what it takes to get this done.
Absolutely, P. And those are some good value points right there. It's something I'm always questioning myself on when it comes to my team and my managers. Am I spending enough time with them, training and developing them to be better managers, especially in their certain criteria stores? And I think I'm trying. I think I'm trying my best. And I'm constantly asking myself this, okay, did I direct them? Did I show them, hey, this is how I would do it. This is how it needs to be done. This is how my week would look like. I wouldn't call credit 6 hours of the day and then ignore sales. I wouldn't do sales all day and ignore the credit. This is how I would split my time. And then ask myself, okay, if after I've had this conversation and I've had this training and they're still not getting it, like you said, is it an incapability or is it an attitude of, well, I don't care, I'm still going to continue doing it my way? Those are questions I'm going to have to evaluate and ask myself, why is this specific individual not picking up on what I'm trying to teach them? And, I think you would agree that there's been some times where we've had general managers where the truth of the matter is they're just really, really good assistant managers. And we gave them a shot, or we promoted them too quickly, or we forced them into the position because, let's be honest, sometimes that was our only option at that specific store location. And I think those are tough conversations to have as well. But that's something we need to realize because, again, there's more to being a manager than just renting and collecting and calling credit. There's a lot more to it. Being a phenomenal assistant manager, that's what you mainly focus on, is getting the sales, make sure the credit's being called, make sure the dollars are coming in, and managing the deliveries. But there's more to it when you become the general manager. And like I said, it's the reports that I don't like to do, but that you love to do. It's the trends. It's the merchandising, the ordering, the inventory, the services and loaners. It's all this other stuff. It's more of working on the business than in the business. But the good store managers also delegate tasks and then have to follow up on the tasks because, like you said, you can't do it all. You can do it all, but you have a checklist or whatever, and a to-do list, and you have to delegate, hey, I need you to take care of these services. I need you to take care of the vehicle maintenance. And then as the manager, you have to follow back up and say, did you do it? Let me see it. Make sure you did it right. Train them to how to do it, because you just can't expect people to know how to do it, especially the way you want to do it, especially when you get promoted.
I think that one thing we have to realize is, number one, even seeing your sweet spot, because some people might be in their great times right now and they don't realize it. And they also don't realize that when coming out of that particular position, it creates a little travesty that you also have to notice. You have to notice your seasons, because you have to be aware of them to know, yeah, I'm selling more. Well, you're selling more because you're in November and December. Or I'm selling yes. Yeah, well, you're going into the summertime. I have more payouts this month. Well, you're in February and March. That's going to happen. So you have to know your seasons, but you also have to know yourself. And it's self-evaluation. And then I think, yes, sometimes that we put people in those positions either out of necessity or because they're next up. And it's a lot easier to feel like, even though they make great assistants, sometimes they just, for whatever reason, when you put them in that position, they freeze up. It's stage fright. You're all of a sudden the one conducting the orchestra. And sometimes it's a little bit more daunting than it looks. And I think as GMs, as DMs, we have to look at it. Remember, if this person is new to this particular role, or if this person is new to this one situation I'm throwing at them, have I given them sufficient time to really tackle that position? Have I given them the amount of training that they need? Have I really kind of coached them the way I should and kind of guided them? And if you haven't, it's okay. But we have to remember that we can't take them out of the position because they're not 100% there. We just have to make sure that we're 100% honest with ourselves and, always include that into the thought process of the training and the learning.
I guess at the end of all this, Pete, is, it comes down to training and developing. We got to ask ourselves, did we do everything in our power to train and develop them? Have we been trained and developed to our full potential? And then after we get those answered questions, that's when we really ask, okay, now, are we capable of running X amount of revenue? I personally have told you, I'm going to be honest, I think me running 7 stores is my max. I don't think I could handle 8 without changing my management style. So that's to go to say, if I was to ever get an 8th store, I already know hands down the way I manage my 7-store division, I would not be able to do that with 8. It would be completely different. It would be another little step back of less operational and more administrative and more of auditing reports. At a 5, like when you started off with only 4 stores, you were very hands-on. It was easier to get in and out in the nitty-gritty, get your hands dirty. You went to 5. Okay, you still can keep your hand on everything because you have 5 stores. Boom, 1 store a week. You can see everybody 4 times a month. Now getting to the 6th store, you realize, okay, now it's more of a prioritizing your scheduling. And with me, with 7, it's like prioritizing my schedule. Like, I need an office day because now we're overseeing several locations, 6, 7. So you definitely need an office day. So that's 1 day out of the week you're not going to visit a store. That gives you 4 days left. Who's the priority? Who is the priority that needs to be visited? And it might be for different reasons. It might be for performance issues, so we go there and train and develop. It might be an auditing reason because, hey, we have our monthly and quarterly audits. So you see what I'm saying? Like, with every level of management, you're going to have to grow and evolve on your management style, and you need to come to a reality of what your sweet spot is. Not to say you're not going to push yourself, but just like working out, when you're bench pressing, you have your max. Some people it's 300 pounds, some people it's 400 pounds. But then you got your sweet spot, 250. I could do this all day. Ain't nobody going to stop me. So I think after the training and developing is done and completed, that's where the honest conversation with yourself internally and then externally where your superiors has to be, hey, this is my sweet spot. Like, I can't push myself anymore. Doesn't necessarily mean you're kicked off the team. It's just, well, then where can we best suit your strengths to help both of us out?
Well, I think the sweet spot can definitely be developed as well. If you have come across that sweet spot that you're in and you're having trouble coming out of it, I think there's an internal look that you have to make and see where you can learn to be better at whatever you're doing. And then there's that look to say, I can honestly judge my sweet spot and say that I'm coming out of it and I really need to learn more. I need to understand how to develop my guys in a different way, or how to develop myself in a different way, or how to time manage in a different way to get the task done that I need to get done. If it includes time management, if it includes another employee, if it includes, changing what you're doing, but still having the same amount of people. So when you're in your sweet spot, you got to remember that those are the glory days. And if you want to grow out of that sweet spot, which we all do, you've got to know where it is. And then you got to know when you've got to change your management style. Is it based on customers? I think so. I think that there's a 400 to 450 spot, and I think there's a 550 to 600 spot. Do you have the right people in the positions? Do you have elite people in the positions, or do you have newbies in the position? Do you have all your positions filled? There's a lot of things that go into that because sometimes we have people that are out or sick or new to the system and new to what we do, and we have to train them up. So we always have to remember that when it comes to judging yourself and where you are in your sweet spot, you got to remember that the staff plays a huge role in that. Are you working on overtime? Are you not working on overtime? One thing that I like to do is get somebody from Aaron's on here. And if anybody works at the Aaron's company, please feel free to call in or at least email us at Pete@thertoshowpodcast.com or Danny@thertoshowpodcast.com. I know that you guys run customers and your staffing a little bit differently than Danny and I are used to, and we'd love to hear from you. If you can, please just reach out to us and let us know, hey, this is how we do it and this is what it is. We'd even love to have an interview with you or maybe put you on the show. If you have any questions, you can also reach out to us by going to Instagram, Facebook. You can listen to the show on Spotify. So when you subscribe to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of the other things and you hear us talking about it, please reach out to us and let us know what's going on. You can www.thertoshowpodcast.com and take a look at us on there and some of the crazy and wonky things that we're doing. But know your sweet spot. Know how to get in, know how to realize what it is and know how to get out of it. Remember that training is the key, and allowing people to kind of grow with the time frames that they need to get better at getting out of their sweet spot and learning what it is, learning how to, manage around it is a great thing. Remember that as you're growing, sometimes you want to try new things. And what we do is we try social media marketing. Unlimited Marketing Solutions is a social media marketing company that can market directly to your specific customer base and provide solid and trackable results. Unlimited Marketing Solutions are also extremely flexible to meet your unique needs and budget, and are currently running a promotion for 10% discount off your first 6 months of marketing when you mention the code RTO Show. That's RTOSHOW when you call them at 352-553-3245. You can also email them at unlimitedmarketingsolutions.llc@gmail.com. And that's what I believe the sweet spot is to do, is to kind of put you an idea where you see what you can do, what the best part of you is, and then how to mature around it.
So ask yourself this question: what is your sweet spot? We'd love to hear feedback. Like Pete said, email us, text us, message us on social media. And without further ado, this is Danny and Pete at the RTO Show.